Shalom and welcome to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker. The political landscape of America is changing, and socialism is rearing its head in a more profound way than in any other previous time in our history. Conservatism is being redefined, and the Bible, if even referenced, is no longer the foundation upon which America is built. Here to talk about what's going on in America today is Joe Newby of conservativefiringline.com. Joe is a 10-year veteran of the United States Marine Corps who wrote for Examiner.com for 6 years. His articles have also appeared at Newsbusters, Spokane Faith and Values, and other sites. He currently runs the Conservative Firing Line, where he discusses issues important to conservatives. He is the co-author of Banned, How Facebook Enables Militant Islamic Jihad, and he appears here on Revealing the Truth on the first Monday of each month at the 12 o'clock hour. Here to bring us up to date on America Gone Wild is Joe Newby. Joe, welcome to your edition of Revealing the Truth.
Morning, Eric. It's great to see you again.
Great to see you. So, well, you know, there's just such a lack of news to talk about, and just a lack of issues. Hard to tell where to begin as we see America unraveling in every way.
Right. Well, you know, Eric, I was given some serious thought because it's almost springtime, and there's this great big, yellow ball up in the sky here. You know, I live in the Pacific Northwest. We don't see that very often. So I thought maybe we could take this whole program outside, maybe out back, and we could just video us maybe roasting some hot dogs or marshmallows or maybe barbecuing up some I don't know, chicken or something. I don't know. What do you think?
Joe, I'm baffled. The Supreme Court voted down holding Hillary Clinton accountable for the usage of private mail, which virtually eliminates Benghazi inquiry, the whole nonsense that went through all of that. How is it that we have a predominantly conservative Supreme Court that did not rule in favor of holding her accountable to testify?
One name. That would be John Roberts, period. I had great hopes for him, but lately, I got to tell you, Eric, I have serious concerns about what's going on with this man. And I can't help but wonder, is there something going on behind the scenes? Something that is maybe possibly being held over his head. I don't know. I'm speculating, and I admit that. The last thing I want to consider is the possibility that a Supreme Court Chief Justice might actually be in the position where he could be blackmailed into taking certain positions. But it certainly seems that on a number of decisions of late that he has sided with the far left, even on issues that are clearly unconstitutional, and it boggles my mind. And I'm not the only one who's wondering, what's up with this guy? Why is he coming down the way he is? He says, yes, it's because of the Constitution, but there have been times where he has been found to have made the exact opposite decision. It just seemed to depend on whose ox is going to get gored, I guess. That's the only thing I can come up with.
We obviously are living in a partisan, controlled government situation that's going to continue until the midterm elections, and if it doesn't turn around the midterm elections, then so much damage can be done that is almost irreversible. And we're watching this happen, and it is so partisan and straight down party lines that
Right.
it is clearly not representative of the people in any way, which in itself is not constitutional.
Right,
And
right.
the very fabric of the Constitution is being shredded apart because the people back home are not supporting what their representatives and their senators are standing for, and no one seems to care.
Well, my bird does.
Your bird does care. This,
The
I
bird
know.
cares. She's telling me in no uncertain terms. In fact, I think she just said impeach Biden. I'm not, I'll have to go back and listen to the video, but you're absolutely right, Eric. And it's worse than that. It's not just partisan. We're now devolving into one-party rule. Pretty much what they had in the Soviet Union, pretty much what they had in communist Cuba. Well, pretty much what we see in every dictatorship, in every totalitarian country. We're seeing one-party rule. And worse than that, we have a media that seems to be willingly submitting itself as willing propagandists for the majority party in the House and the Senate and in the White House, and they're doing it happily. They're happily lying about, well, literally everything. Okay, it's gotten that bad, Eric. I mean, look at what they're doing with this Georgia election law. Okay, I've come to the conclusion that these people in the media are either illiterate, they're stupid, or they choose to remain ignorant, which in my view constitutes stupid. Okay, deliberately lying about what is in this Georgia election law, deliberately telling mistruths about it, untruths, deliberately distorting the facts to push a narrative. And now you have these woke corporations, Coke, America, Delta Airlines, you name it, and they're demanding boycotts and demanding this and demanding that. Well, you know what? I got an idea, especially for the MLB, the Major League Baseball. I tell you what, why don't they go to pack up and go to New Jersey, where the election laws are even stricter than they were in Georgia, even before this law. It boggles the mind, Eric. I'm telling you, it's as though people have become stupid, and they are pushing the envelope as though they're in a contest to see who can become the most stupid. It has literally gotten that bad. I can't help but think that they think that George Orwell's 1984 is an instruction manual instead of a warning. It boggles the mind. It really does.
I think the greatest line that I saw was a response from the governor of Georgia to the president of Delta Airlines saying, sir, the last time I flew on your airline, I had to show a picture ID.
Mm-hmm. That's
so
right.
If flying on your airline, I have to show a picture ID, why would you be opposed to having a picture ID used to be able to vote in this country? If I'm not a legitimate airline passenger because I don't have a photo ID, then why would I not be an illegitimate voter if I don't have a voter ID? You're saying your standard is for the protection of your flight and your flight crew and the passengers, and I'm saying ours is for the protection of the constitutional right to vote, that only those who are allowed to vote, permitted to vote under the Constitution can prove that. It's no different than your standard for boarding your airplane, how can you be opposed to a policy that you employ within your own business?
I would go one step further, Eric. I would say to Delta, to Coca-Cola, and to any other company that says voter ID is racist, that themselves require ID, like the airline. I would say you're racist. You're racist if you want people to show ID to buy that liquor. If you want people to show ID to get on your airplane, if you want people to show ID to do, any number of things that we're required to do, be it cash a check, buy an airline ticket, purchase a gun. If you think it's racist to show ID to vote, then it's racist to buy your product. It's racist to purchase your service if I have to show an ID in order to do so. Problem solved.
There's not a gas station that does not post that we will, if you are under the age of 21, we will ask for identification to prove your age to sell you cigarettes and alcohol. If that's the, maybe it's 18, whatever it is, you have to have ID to be able to do that.
Right.
There are many things which require identification. Banking, to establish a bank account, to cash a check, you need photo ID to prove that you are the party that you say that you are. This idea that you don't have to have an ID to vote, which what's so interesting was that you and I came out of a selective service system. Right? When I turned 18, I had to register for the draft.
Right, as did I.
It required a photo ID. I had to fill out my selective service form and present identification. Now, in Pennsylvania, where I lived and where I went to college, the voting age was 21 in America. The drinking age in Pennsylvania was 21. So I could neither vote nor could I drink, but I could be drafted at 18 and die, but I didn't have those other rights.
I remember those days, and I remember that was the argument at the time. Hey, if I'm old enough to fight and die for my country, then by golly, I'm old enough to vote. I'm old enough to buy a beer if I want to. I remember that argument very well, because it wasn't long. I think, well, in fact, I was in high school in Texas when they lowered the age of majority from 21 to 18, and said you could be, you can vote, you can buy, certain liquor when you're 18 years of age. And I remember that. I was in high school at the time. And yeah, I definitely remember those days very, very clearly. And that was the exact same argument that was used.
I understand what's driving this, and that is that if you're going to take the illegal immigrant population, allow them to vote, they're going to vote for Uncle Joe, who invited them into this country and is looking to defend all their rights, and that's going to pad the rolls of the Democratic Party. That's election rigging, and it's exactly what it is rigging an election.
Right, it's electioneering. It's corporations sticking their nose into policy that that they really have no clue what they're talking about. They really have no idea what they're doing. They should, in my opinion, stick to what they know, which is flying that airplane, making that Coca-Cola, doing whatever it is. Look, I don't have a problem with companies saying, we oppose racism. we support diversity. I don't have a problem with that at all. All right, company I work for, uh, they're like that. They support, you know, diversity and all this. That's fine. That's great. But you know what? When you start getting yourself involved in political situations, the way Coca-Cola is doing, the way that the MLB is doing, the way some of these airlines and some of these other companies are doing, then you know what? You're getting out of that corporate box that you should be in. Your job as a company is to make money for the people who own your company. Period. End of sentence. Whether it be as stockbrokers, the stockholders, the shareholders, whatever, or whether it be, the guy in the back room whose name is on the business license, whatever the case may be. That's your job as a company, is to make money, keep people working, provide that good, provide that service at market value, market rates, and let government do what government does. Now, I don't have a problem with companies lobbying for certain things. That's fine. We allow for that in the law. Okay, that's fine. But when a corporation, Eric, comes out and says, you must think as we do or you're racist, then I have a real problem with that. If you don't think the way that we want you to think, then we're going to boycott you. We're going to make life miserable for you. I have a real problem with that sort of thinking from both sides. I must say, from both sides.
But the Constitution clearly sets the states in charge of their voting policies.
Right.
So the comments from the floor of the House in regards to these matters are actually inappropriate.
They're unconstitutional.
Right. This is for the state legislation.
Mm-hmm.
The state government. Dear friend of mine is a member of the state house. Another is a state senator.
Right.
And we're looking here in Georgia at a number of issues that are related to Georgia. One of them is education, and they're of the mindset that before Reagan, education was a state-run entity.
Mm-hmm.
But now we have so many layers of government. We have the county board of education. We have the city board of education. We have the state board of education. And we have the federal board of education. So all these people work in these redundancies when Alabama or Iowa or Idaho should be determining what curriculum is appropriate for their populace.
Exactly.
And gearing the choice of curriculum that it may be across the state of Alabama based on affluence and aptitude, environment, that the curriculum that's used in part of the state is different than the curriculum that's used in another part of the state.
Right.
To help raise the level of the state by studying the deficiencies and disparity across the state as to what's been lacking to help raise the level of the entire state.
Right.
The federal government doesn't have any vested interest in Selma, Alabama versus Birmingham, Alabama, or Huntsville, Alabama. All three are different demographics. All three are different populations. All three, Huntsville is a space center. It's a technology center. You find more technology, aerospace engineers, highly educated, highly trained PhDs concentrate in that area. Birmingham is heavily medical and financial. So we have a higher percentage of doctors and medical profession. Right. We have a medical school here. We have all kinds of hospital systems here. And then you take a Selma, Alabama, which is more in a rural setting where those kind of opportunities don't exist. And so the aspirations of a person in Selma is going to be based on his level of education. So if you can raise his level of education, literacy being one of them, to a level that's going to get them out of poverty, then that's where we should be focusing and emphasizing their educational system on literacy being the universal determinator for whether or not a child will wind up in the system or wind up in gainful employment.
And you know, Eric, you're hitting on some very, very, very salient points here. And you know, we could talk about this whole issue of education for hours on end because, you know, like you said, it's, you know, the education requirements, for example, for folks in various parts of Alabama are definitely going to be different than, say, for various parts of California. The big problem, or Idaho, or Washington State even. But the big difference here is that there is nothing in the Constitution that says education. What the Constitution does provide for is something called the 10th Amendment, which says those items not enumerated to be handled by the federal government are to be handled by the states. And at the time, education was one of them because everybody realized way back when this country was first formed, they knew the education needs in, say, New York or Philadelphia are going to be a lot different than they are in, say, North Carolina or Georgia, okay? You know, looking at the original 13 colonies, original 13 states, if you will. So they knew that. But there was one thing that they wanted to have some kind of standard, and that was in the way that certain federal elections, specifically the election of a president of the United States, was to be run. And they set that up specifically telling the states, and to my knowledge, that is the only place in the Constitution where the states are specifically given the role of handling federal presidential elections. The state legislatures are given that power specifically by the Constitution. Okay? It's not a federal, yes, it's a federal office, but the power was given to the states to determine how those elections would be run in those states. And not just not to state judges, not to state Supreme Courts, Eric, but this is even more important, but to the state legislatures. Okay? The Idaho House, the state legislature there in Alabama, they're the ones who determine how elections are to be run in Idaho and Alabama. Same thing in New York, same thing in Pennsylvania. What has happened, though, is that some of these states, like Pennsylvania, chose not to follow their own state law. And they went in the midstream, they went and they changed the law through judicial fiat, not through the legislature, but through the judiciary, which is unconstitutional. All right? So now you have an issue where the Constitution no longer matters to the Supreme Court, at least where elections are concerned. The Constitution no longer matters to the Democrat Party and the Democrats in Washington, who, by the way, Eric, let me just add this, if I may, all of whom took an oath specifically to protect and preserve the Constitution, are now doing violence to the Constitution by saying that what the Constitution says about things like the Electoral College, about state legislatures handling their own election laws, um, the very same people who took an oath to preserve, protect that Constitution are doing everything they can to strip those two things out of the Constitution through legislation that, in my view, should be found to be unconstitutional if it's passed into law. And I'm talking specifically about H.R. 1.
You know, the Constitution clearly states that any change to the Constitution requires a 75% vote of the states.
Mm-hmm.
That's the law of the land.
Right.
Anything that does not, that materially alters the Constitution via amendment or rewriting requires 75% of the states. It can't be done through executive order.
Nope.
It cannot be done through the judiciary. It
Nope.
cannot be done through the legislature. The legislature can vote on it and then send it to the states to be ratified by the states.
Right.
But none of that seems to come into play in this. And it seems that there is a war going on, and the war is I talked to, at the airport, a police officer who was patrolling the deck area.
Right.
I stopped him and I asked him, and I thanked him for his service, and I asked him what he thought was going on, and he said, America is on the brink of civil war.
Mm-hmm.
I've
been saying that for a long time now.
He said this lobby to get rid of guns is only causing more people to get guns.
Right.
And then when they come about to try to restrict the guns, those who are inclined to do so will defend their right to carry a gun, and we're going to be faced with another situation like Janet Reno faced at Waco.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to become, and you and I both well know that there are millions of motorcycle enthusiasts.
Mm-hmm.
And many of them are well organized into clubs. All of them are, or the better part of them are patriots, ex-military that found comfort in fellowship with ex-military people. They don't like what's going on in this country. They are meeting to discuss what the response is going to be. I think that if Sturgis were to occur this year and there would be any federal presence there whatsoever, that we could see an armed conflict.
You know, I pray that that never happens. I mean, the folks that I talk to that are bikers, that are affiliated with bikers, and even some of the folks that I've spoken to online who are affiliated with various militia groups, I can tell you the last thing they want is armed conflict. That is the absolute last thing they want. But I can tell you this. The folks I've spoken to, and don't misunderstand, they certainly don't represent everyone. But I can just tell you that from the people I've spoken to, tell me that they're more concerned about the woke tyranny that is taking place in this country right now. If you're white, heterosexual, male, you have a big target on your back, Eric. That's just the way it is. Look at what's happening in the Biden regime with what they're doing to the military. This idea of a stand down, the 60-day stand down to quote unquote root out extremism. Well, what's an extremist? Okay. Well, Steve Cohen, Democrat from Tennessee, kind of gave us an idea of what they might consider to be an extremist, and that's essentially anybody who supports Donald Trump, especially if they're white, especially if they're male. Look at what they did to Tucker Carlson. I mean, for crying out loud, Eric, I was in the Marine Corps for 10 years, all right? And it was drilled into my head that you do not engage in politics when you wear that uniform. Period. End of sentence. You don't do it. Okay? Yes, you vote. You can vote if you so choose. And they encouraged us to vote. But you were not allowed to involve yourself in politics. You could not get involved in a political campaign. I know guys who did. They would go out and walk precincts for someone, but never in uniform and never even wear anything that said, that they were with the Marine Corps or in the Marine Corps. You could not run for office, obviously. You could not campaign for a political point of view. But now you have members of the military, and we're talking senior members of the military, going online, going on social media, and attacking a talk show host for daring to have an opinion and expressing an opinion that they don't like. What's up with that? When I was in, that was illegal. You couldn't do that. And now they're doing it with impunity. Senior members of the military doing it with impunity. And it makes me wonder, Eric, what is happening in this country? What has changed so drastically since last November? I know that's a rhetorical question,
Right.
Actually, because we all know that what happened, of course, there was an election, and Donald Trump lost the election. So we know what happened. We know what happened. And that was done with the help of big tech and big media, and we know where they stand.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't surprise me, really. Like it really doesn't. It's sad. I will say this. So it's very sad, especially as someone who has spent 10 years in the Marine Corps, and I'm proud of my service. I have no problem saying that. I'm proud of my service. I'm proud of the Corps that I serve. But I got to tell you, Eric, I can't help but wonder what happened to my Marine Corps. Okay, and it reminds me, crackers of grease.
Crackers agree. Well, you know what, Joe? We're gonna take a short break here right now and finish up on the other side of break, because what's happening to America and what we can do about it is something that we really need to engage in one cohesive thought. We're talking to Joe Newby, as we do on the first Monday of every month at 12 o'clock hour, from conservativefiringline.com. And you can follow Joe there, sign up for Conservative Firing Line, and get the inside scoop from a host of great conservative minds who continue to bring the truth to light. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. Shalom. I'm Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, host of Revealing the Truth, Revealing the Bible, and Revealing Prophecy, seen every week on the Igniting Nation Broadcasting Network. Our daily on-demand programming is available on our Apple and Android apps and on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Android TV. We broadcast live Monday through Friday through our apps, on our website, ignitingnation.com, and on Facebook Live. You can listen daily on our audio platforms on Spotify, iTunes, TuneIn, and iHeart. Our lineup of best-selling authors bring you the most in-depth biblical insights into the most pressing issues of our time, including prophecy, Israel, spiritual warfare, and a wide variety of contemporary Christian issues impacting the body of Messiah around the globe. If you missed the live show, you can always catch up on the Igniting Nation YouTube channel. Follow us on social media and join us as we endeavor to heal the nations with the Word of God.
With today's smartphone technology, news, information, sports, and entertainment is widely available and almost unbounded. But what about the information that believers in Yeshua are looking for? Well, now there's an app for that. Igniting a Nation now has apps available for Android and iPhone. With our app, you'll gain access to everything you would in our website, from our featured guests to our live streaming shows. Visit Google Play or the Apple Store and download Igniting a Nation's new app today.
Shalom. I'm Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, inviting you to study right by my side through the Biblical Truth Library. Imagine having access to over 1,000 hours of audio and video teachings available to you through our website on a subscription basis or via our Apple and Android apps on an a la carte basis. Whichever method you choose, we promise to deliver new insights into the living Word of God as seen through the eyes of a Jewish believer. If you hunger and thirst like millions around the world for a deeper walk with God and the revelation of new understanding of the Scriptures, visit ignitinganation.com and click on the Biblical Truth Library or on any device with our free app. Don't let another day go by without receiving your heart's desire for a new depth of understanding into all of God's Word. Shalom. I'm Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, inviting you to join me and my special featured guests twice per month with Rabbi Zeb Parat and Carl Gallups, and monthly with Dr. Michael Heiser, Dr. Michael Lake, Dr. Timothy Jennings, Dr. Mark Baker, Dr. Jeffrey Johnson, Drs. Michelle and Mark Sherwood, Dr. Kim Moss, Derek Gilbert, Peter Rosenberger, Brandon Gallups, Steve Fair, Stephen Black, for in-depth insights into Israel, prophecy, the unseen realm, the brain, spiritual warfare, overcoming shame, mysteries of the Bible, prophetic insights, the sensational and the supernatural, caregiving, addiction recovery, understanding the divided heart, same-sex attraction, and much more. We're proud to feature some of the greatest biblical minds from both Israel and around the United States. Check out our featured guest lineup and 24/7 feed on ignitinganation.com or watch by topic on any device with our free apps. If you can't find what you need, you're just not looking in the right place. Follow us on social media and download our free apps today. Shalom. I'm Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, inviting you to join me and Israel's #1 rated guide, Edo Canaan, for our annual Israel trip. Our 2022 trip is now open for registration for our 18th trip to Israel. Our trip will take us from Tel Aviv to the Galilee, down to the Dead Sea, and 4 nights in Jerusalem. You will walk where Yeshua walked and watch the Bible turn from black and white to living color. Visit ignitinganation.com/events and download the registration form today. No, it's not too early to take advantage of our payment plan designed to fit any budget. All of our trips sell out, and we want you to experience this life-changing journey. Registration is now open for April 2nd to 13th, 2022, and we promise you, you will never read your Bible the same way again. Shalom and welcome back to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, and as we do on the first Monday of each month, in the 12 o'clock hour, we meet with our good friend from conservativefiringline.com, Joe Newby. Joe, welcome back.
Good to be here. You know, Eric, I was just I didn't get a chance to say it before, but I just kind of wanted to throw this out. When I was in the Marine Corps, especially going through boot camp, I heard a lot of drill instructors say this, and I confess to having used this myself a time or two. But one of the things that the drill instructors would say to recruits who were messing up, they get down on their face and they get that campaign cover, the tip of that campaign cover, just right there on the recruit's forehead, and ask them point blank, "Were you sit here by the Kremlin to, you know what, mess up my Marine Corps?" I mean, and as I look at what's going on, that's exactly what I feel like doing sometimes, Eric. I confess. I just want to grab a hold of one of these politicians and right here and just right in his face, you know, were you sitting here by the Kremlin to mess up my country? I mean, seriously, it's almost to that point, really. But
it amazes me that what is going on in Washington, that the Republicans seem to be neutered in all this, and even the Joe Manchins, who might be influenced, he's not going to be. No. And it's going to be straight party line politics for the next 2 years. And when you talk about the trillions upon trillions upon trillions of dollars they're talking about, and Trump gets a company to move back to America, and Biden comes with the policy, and they announce they're moving out of America.
Back to China.
Back to China. Back to Mexico. It makes no sense whatsoever, and the outcome of it is just more fat catting, more tax increases, more subject the people to more oppression, and even in this legislation that brought COVID relief to the farmer, it brought COVID.
Not all farmers. Not all farmers.
No, right. That's exactly right. It was packaged as reparations, and the white farmer was eliminated from receipt of help, and the black and Asian and Hispanic farmer were recipients of help, quote unquote, for reparations.
Eric, there's so much insanity, so much stupidity, and that's what it is. It's flat out stupidity going on within the halls of Congress, within our mainstream media, which frankly disgusts me to no end. Something, and this has been rattling around in the back of my mind for a bit. Now that they've been starting to talk about this COVID vaccine passport nonsense. It seems to me, as I recall, reading my Bible, is that this kind of thing was all foretold long before there was ever a Western Hemisphere even known about by human beings. This kind of stuff was all foretold. And I keep thinking that, yes, as terrible as it is now, and it is, it's going to get worse. But we know who wins in the end. That's the bottom line. We know who wins in the end.
Right.
But what do we do in the meantime? Do we jump up and down in rapture practice, or do we, spread the word, spread the gospel of Christ and the message, of Christ, and not just that, but also getting people awake to the reality that, hey, these things are actually happening. You need to get right with God. When you get right with God, bad things will still happen, but you'll be right with God, and nobody can take that away from you.
Right.
And I keep thinking, Eric, that we're at this time where we need to focus on that more and more and more, and we need to drill this. Yes, we need to be active. We need to stay active. There's nothing that says that we have to pull out. We need to stay active. We need to keep our legislatures on their toes. But at the same time, I think we need to realize where we are right now in the grand scheme of things. And it hit me when they were talking about this vaccine passport. You know who Naomi Wolf is, right? She was a former advisor to Bill Clinton. Naomi Wolf is not what you would call a conservative. okay?
Right.
Hardly at all. In fact, politically, I would say she and I are about as opposite as you can get. But she's also the CEO of a tech company herself. She knows how the tech industry works. She knows how big tech works. She knows how technology works. And even she realizes the danger of this vaccine passport. And she was on talking about this, and she said in no uncertain terms that if this thing happens, it will be the death of human liberty in the West. Because with this vaccine passport and with the technology already in place, with PayPal and all these payment processors and all this stuff that's out there, in the cloud, okay? We are, it got me to thinking anyway that maybe we are seeing something here that could be a possible precursor, if you will, to the biblical mark of the beast. And I went back and I took a quick look just to refresh my memory and to make sure that I'm not, talking out, where I shouldn't be talking. And I went back and I reviewed Revelation 13. And there are 3 verses in there from verse 15 to verse 18 that talks about a mark placed on the back of one's hand or on the forehead. But the placement doesn't really matter. What mattered to me was what this mark meant. It was the mark of the beast, but there was something about that particular mark you could not buy or sell without this mark. And as I listened to what Naomi Wolf said, and I read what Naomi Wolf said, something about what she said struck a chord with me. And with this vaccine passport, from everything I've read about it, they could use this to track your movement. Companies could use this to deny you the ability to purchase items, to engage in commerce. You would need this passport to, say, enter into various sports venues. And when I read that, what they were talking about with this passport, that passage from Revelation came to my mind. And I couldn't help but wonder, is that the beginning of this? And for those who want to say, well, yeah, but the mark is something that's either, under the skin or on the skin or, whatever. Well, that's fine. But let's not forget it. I think it was like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I wrote about a company back in Wisconsin, Minneapolis. I don't remember exactly where, but there was a company that had come up with an RFID chip that could be implanted right under the skin. And this company was actually hosting a chipping party for its employees. And I'm here to tell you, Eric, it would take absolutely nothing to put the information that's on that COVID vaccine passport onto one of those tiny little chips and place it underneath the skin, on the hand, on the forehead, wherever. It doesn't matter where. But the fact is, it can be done. It can be done right now. And
the one thing that the one assurance we have is that each person will have to voluntarily know that they are taking the mark of the beast. So,
right.
Subversively working that way into society doesn't meet the criteria. It has to be a conscious decision because you are deciding to forego salvation to accept and worship the beast.
That's why, when I opined about this, and you're absolutely right, Eric, you're absolutely correct. Of course, that's the carrot, but of course the stick is without this you can't you can't engage in commerce. Okay, that's the stick. Okay,
Right.
so there's always a carrot and a stick to these things, and I agree with you 100%. That's why it hit me that maybe this could be seen as possibly a precursor to
There
that.
you go. There you go.
To-
The introduction of it, the collection of information, brings a pathway to building a database to identify population and people by name. Now you have these 10 kingdoms, and you have these armies, the armies of the Antichrist, who are now going to go out and martial law and door to door and say to you, you know, listen, here's the choice. Grab your baby, hold a gun to it, and say,
Yeah.
if you don't take this, we're going to kill your baby. And I'm going to say, if I take it, you're going to kill my baby. I know where my baby's going.
Right.
I know where I'm going, so go ahead and shoot me now. But if they say, no, we're not going to shoot you, but you're not going to be able to buy and sell, then I need to know in advance that I have to be prepared. I have to not
Right.
become a prepper, but I have to be prepared to, first of all, join together with a community of people that are resolved to not take it and to collaborate, to make sure that I have somebody in my circle who's a medical person, someone in my circle who has access to pharmaceuticals, someone in my circle that has access to food supplies, somebody in my circle that's a hunter, somebody in my circle that's a proficient fisherman, someone in my circle that's a good survivalist, somebody put together a small group, if you will, of trusted people, and then you band together and you identify a place which is out of the mainstream. That's going to be where you gather, and you begin to not hoard supplies, but you begin to prepare as the 5 virgins were prepared with their lamps filled with oil. They didn't know when the master was coming. They had no idea when the groom was coming. They were just told to be ready. So,
this is
right.
when it's going to happen, but we are told to be ready. And something that hit me with this is that I got to thinking about the old saw about the frog, boiling the frog.
Right.
And the idea, I mean, if we can get, if people can get acclimatized, accustomed to the idea of having something, okay, call it a passport, call it, whatever you want to call it, having something to show that you're righteous with the ruling authority in order to engage in commerce, then how much easier would it be for that same population, say a population that doesn't know God, the population that doesn't know Christ, to accept a mark like the one spoken of in Revelation?
Listen, Joe, we went through this with the Depression with food vouchers. Every family had to have food vouchers in order to be able to get government food.
Right.
So we've already piloted the program during the Depression to know how it works and how you get the government cheese. All right. We already know how to do that. All right. We have experience through the Depression. Now you fast forward technology, you fast forward all of this, and we know now through technology and information and, listen, the idea of registering voters to this Luciferian agenda seems to be a natural fit, that I would want to go to a robust voter registration system where I can collect all the information I possibly can on everyone I possibly can, including undocumented, make them get documented so I know where they are, because they're included in this overall master plan as well. So there's parts of this that kind of are fits and starts and add up but don't add up, and it seems to be that like Satan is the father of confusion, that there is this confusion that they don't know what they're doing. They kind of know that they're supposed to be doing it, but they don't really know how to do it right because they're not aware of the end game, and the end game is ultimately for the rise of the Antichrist and the one world government. But they're not plugged into it they're so caught up in their own agenda, follow their own money, secure their own position. We've run out of time, as we always do. We have so much to talk about, but you can catch up with Joe every day on conservativefiringline.com and here on the first Monday of every month at the 12 o'clock hour as we talk about America Gone Wild. Joe Newby, always a pleasure to be with you, my friend. I look forward to seeing you right back here next month.
Look forward to it myself, Eric.
God bless. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll bring in the next edition of Revealing the Truth.